There's people that work more closer to the script and the storytelling, so my way of telling the story would be very visual. It's always easier for me to do. On set, I had like about, like 6, 7, 8 little booklets. Every day I would sketch my shot. Sometimes it may be a little tough for designers to say, well, another designer's coming, so I made Dan. And I loved the man right away, just for the man first. Dan had been an art director for Lord of the Rings and many other movies. I brought the stuff to Dan and said, Dan, this is kind of like, I want that, I want Romanesque, I want this. Dan took all that with no problem, took off, and made this world 10 times better.
One of the real bonuses of this job was working with a really visual director, someone with the background of production design, creature design. He could see what he wanted, and it's always helpful, when you're building sets and designing sets, and you want to see the set and to have the confidence that your director can actually see what's there is great.
The sets, the world tells you, in the first image of the movie, tells you the backstory. There's many things that are going to be told through the sets, and the world's got its own look already. So I couldn't drift away too much. But what I really wanted to do is to make sure that the world, architecturally speaking and location-wise, that the world felt, oh, we're definitely another time. I didn't want a Gothic-looking movie because he had been done with Lens so well. I said, we need to go to an earlier period. The prior period to Gothic is actually Romanesque, Roman style. It's very Byzantine. Romanesque differ from the Gothic in the sense that Gothic is very ornate, very flowery, many things and gargoyle and things. And I wanted something that felt more like a mausoleum, something very stale, very, very dark and very minimalistic.
And the major influences were Georgian stone architecture from the borders of Russia and a sort of Byzantine, Turkish influence.
The 11th century is very much where that type of architecture is anchored, and the look of the movie is based on that. However, an 11th century castle can still be remaining on the 12th century. The
whole concept was to have this underground place where vampires were comfortable, and ideally on the wrong side of the mountain, so there was not too much sunlight getting in there.
All the basic monastery that was the original castle that Victor took over is actually in construction, and they're rebuilding it through the movie. So he allowed me to create a world that I like the look of without saying, it has to be a part of the period when the movie happened. And I always wanted to design a castle that seems to be carved out of the rock.
This is a castle hewn out of living rock that's been taken over by the vampires and converted to their use. And that conversion is still going on. So you have a reason to have slaves and a reason to be doing construction.
Carving it into the rock like this tells the story that this is the kind of place a vampire would choose to live in. It's made of thousands of corridors and things like that. It's all dark. There's wind. The wind, for me, has been the single most important thing for the language of the vampires. Even inside, you hear the wind flying through the corridor. It expands the place. When you create a castle like this, and the castle should be like 500 feet tall, and you're actually going to build just the bottom part of it, you got to make sure you're not putting yourself in a corner where you can never lift the camera because it's a visual effect. So I say, I'm going to be clever. How many times I need to look up? We previewed every shot that I knew were happening in a castle. I had to figure out what they were and just put them in the budget right away. The Lycans, to me, is like a world of earth, dirt, and drums, and things like this. Was more like the Lycan world. Lycans live in a forest, like animals. They live in caves. And we created that world finding some incredible forests and places in New Zealand.
I've never been outside the walls.
Well, enjoy it while you can, Crystal, because soon enough we're going to have to fight our way back in. We did not all make it out, and I will not leave our brothers to rot back there.
Woodhill Forest, beautiful, under the trees, all that moss. I mean, it was made for us. We made a few rocks to augment it.
Most of the movie is set up in the castle and what's the proximity outside the castle. And because, it's a world of slaves, so they're stuck into this castle as well.
I gave you your life. You gave me chains. I would have thought after all these years you would have known. You cannot have one without the other.
The sets really had to bring out the origin of these people, what they're doing, what their beliefs are, the sort of decadence of their lifestyle, the coldness of their sort of surroundings, and the sort of privation they could put up with as just part of their daily life. So the sets have played a big part in drawing out who is a vampire, what is a vampire. Also, the Lycans.
I can! No, rest dog! Enough.
He allowed me to create a vision for what the characters were and where they were in their lifetime.
We've used a lot of skulls, particularly the gateway to the castle. It's, you know, from that period when people used to hammer the skulls of their enemies on spikes outside the door, and so we put them all over the gate so you could definitely see them. We also have the Corvinus symbol and a lot of chiseled detail that we largely referenced from the Russian, Georgian sort of area. And a lot of it sort of looks a bit like Celtic ropework. The Celts and the Norwegians had this sort of, you call it ropework just because it's a never-ending rope that gets sort of woven together, and certainly was used as a symbol. It's a deep detail we like.
There's a lot of statuaries and things where you see tortured statues everywhere. I've always kind of like human form that are twisted. Even the ornate elements, when there are some, they're always about tortured figures. We have so much happening in the castle. We're doing Underworld. Underworld is about the world under. The Lycans work outside in a courtyard every day and in different kind of corridors. At night, they're being brought back into the dungeon. There's a central room where the chaining, the Lycans happen, but most of it is like a big pipeline of corridor with cells everywhere.
The challenge there is about suspending reality and getting people inside a shaft.
Ceilings are very low. You want to feel like it's very oppressing. You do anything for those things to not be able to straighten up. They are packed in cages together. It's wet. Water became important there because I wanted every location to feel like different. And as much as the Grand Hall is about wind, this one still had wind because the wind circulated in the entire canyon, but the water became the element for the Lycans. We basically worked out the dungeon as a place where wherever you look, you see a corridor that leads to other cages, and it's a maze. So you can never quite find your way. There's a big escape in a movie at one point where those guys run around to find their way out, which is, to me, one of the most action-packed moments in the movie. The crypt is an essential item in Underworld because there's always a couple of the vampires, elders, that are sleeping when one is awake. This is the place where they reconvene and things. And you had that version in Underworld 1, which was a bit more modern, mixed with classic. Well, it was very well suited for this one. And Dan came up with an incredible look.
Now, would anyone else like to be heard?
We were able to do a mosaic and get some gold in there and get some real colour going. It was a formal situation, and we were able to put the history of the Corvinus clan into that.
It was very circular, when everything is very stark and very tall and big. It is probably the most ornate of all the sets we have, because maybe if I respect for the elders, maybe because this is where the heart of the castle is.
It became very much an underground environment, and so we sort of took that ball and ran with it. But there's a blue light, which obviously is a part of the whole Underworld culture, and we definitely wanted to keep that because it was also a moonlight. We've used a lot of green in the sets, partly because it sort of works quite well with the pallor of the skin tones we were after, and we've also introduced a little bit of red and a little bit of gold.
I wanted the blue to be there, but I want the brown to come as well. The browns because it feels for a richer frame. And I think ultimately the movie will come through looking blue, but there'll be more color. And ultimately it is an underworld.
Lycans patrol outside the walls. Have you lost your mind? They are born of beasts, and the savagery of this despicable fact cannot be bred away.
I had 2 suits of werewolf for a movie that's got 500 werewolves. So in any shot I had to do with 2 werewolves. And then we had some backgrounds. Brian and Kurt, my 2 guys, it's a long time friendship and relationship with those guys. Kurt, I did Godzilla with. Brian is, he's the legend here. He's like the creature guy. He's got ways to move that are very recognizable of him. When you got Kurt behind, you're cool. Everywhere I need to look at a real looking, fabulous, moving creature, I would turn to Brian. And Kurt, I wanted to give Brian a break as well, as I wanted him to be an actor in a movie, see him. So Brian's got actually a part in the movie. And it was interesting because the first time he played it, he became a werewolf right there without the suit. I said, Brian, you're not a werewolf, you're a guy now. And he did a great job. I had many moments that I knew I could get away with a suit. So that was the first thing. We had to kind of be clever about the werewolf. I just couldn't reinvent them completely. What's different is the way they move.
We've tried in the dungeons to bring our ceilings down a bit, so everyone has to crouch a little, which helps them get into character. The werewolves, the height of them, the guys running around, we've opened it up as we go up out into the great halls.
CGI is definitely prominent in the movie, especially when you get into big battle thing, but they have those kind of weird werewolf legs thing. And then they start running on two legs. And when they start running faster, there's a moment where they just can't handle running on two legs. Then they drop on four without stopping. So that created an interesting thing. I thought, yeah, that's bad. They burst out of the forest, they're just going to run on two and go on four, and then they go much faster that way. So all that stuff could not be done practical. There's a bit of a special tenderness for me about those creatures because, I've created them in the first one and second, and I just think they're kind of cool beasts. So it's been fun for that too.
I think largely that comes down to the people you've got working for you, but also the people you're working for you. And on this picture, it's been a real delight. Yeah.
I felt genuinely I was coming on set when people were trying to give me the best. It's an incredible pleasure to go, and when you have a vision and you see people working to make it happen for you. This was a piece of paper sketch I did like 3 months ago, and now this is this set. That's great, it's a treat.